All right, so welcome everyone to the May 11th Kubernetes SIG Node meeting. We have a few items on today's agenda, along with our regular order of business. Sergey, did you want to, I don't know if you're available, do you want to give any updates on where we are with incoming and outcoming code, I guess, especially in light of probably focusing on KEPs?
Yeah, fairly speaking, I don't have much update. I pasted the table, and I was super under the water last week. So if somebody else can say something, what's happening in regards to SIG Node, I mean, I think this table is a great way for me to just review what happened. So I will do that.
Sure. Yeah, I would say at a macro level, I know for myself, I've been focusing on helping people shepherd their KEPs to the upcoming deadline for, I guess, the 13th. And so maybe in the spirit of just giving an overall update for that, I don't know if Renaud and Alana, we wanted to talk through the items that we were tracking in the shared Google Doc, and at least we could talk.
Yeah, I mean, from the enhancements team's perspective, they're tracking in the KEP spreadsheet for the release rather than like our doc. So after last week's meeting, everything that we agreed upon that we wanted to do for this release, I put into the spreadsheet, and anything that like didn't make it because it was red or there wasn't a PR or anything like that, I did not add to the spreadsheet. So I don't have screen sharing, but I can at least give you sort of the stats. According to the release team, they are currently tracking right now 22 enhancements for SIG Node, and one has merged, the rest are at risk. So the deadline is this Thursday, at which point things need to be merged, meet all of the criteria in order to be considered for inclusion in the release. And anything that misses that deadline, an exception would need to be filed.
Yeah, so at least for myself, when going through this morning, and we'll continue this afternoon, I think the set qualified domain name kept graduating that to GA. That was tags. So I think across Wojtek and myself, that was good. The set comp as default work that Tim Auclair and Sasha were pushing, I had approved that as well. That looked pretty good. I know Mernal had a KEP open just before this call on priority ordering of shutdown among priority classes. I think I had one minor nit on that, but that also looked good. And then I know Alana had a number of comments on your swap one, but I think we're getting there.
Oh, I was able to figure out the filter view. So if you want to give me co-host, I can share my screen and show you what the release team is currently tracking for Node.
Yeah, you should be good to go now.
Okay.
While waiting for Alana, I also have the quick update. The content notifier, and I think the owner already reached me, so they want to retarget to next release, not this one. And because the site's also overwhelmed, and also the KEP owner also is busy. And I believe shared weather less and the CRF, I think almost get in, suppose. And the Peters and the David one. And the swipe, I think we kind of from high level already agree a while back. And there's some detail for current. We need, at least the base my understanding is should be okay for this one. Rest of the stuff, I think we maybe need to discuss. Oh, by the way, another thing, debug container also, I think should be okay. Is from like the KEP owner, how much his time commit for that one. But I think the KEP already basically is ready.
Cool. So I don't know, Alana, do you have this?
Yeah, so this is the spreadsheet here. So these are everything that the release team is considering at risk right now. So here's the one that they have said is tracked, which I guess has been merged and all that. Other than that one, which has been merged, I would not trust what it says in this PRR status column right now, because I know, for example, this one says PRR approved, but it's not. So, but we're hopefully going to use this once this is all filled out in this column to be able to track whether or not PRR is done, When all of the PRs have merged as an update for KEPs and they meet all the criteria, then this will go from at risk to being tracked. These are the enhancements contacts for each thing. So this is the person on the release team who's tracking that enhancement and is making sure that you've met all of the criteria. And I think almost all of them are something graduating. We have 2 deprecations, and it's kind of a mix across the board between alpha, beta, and I think there's only a few things going to stable. So
yeah, the thing I'm confused on is reconciling Dawn's feedback and I guess Seth's concerns and the author's concern on container notifier, and now that's marked as tracked. That's confusing.
Yeah. There's
yeah,
no
I
way
don't
that
know what's going on with that one. I mean, we can specifically look at that one if you want. Let me see if I can find it.
But I guess
that maybe KEP is merged, but there's no way they're going to finish the real implementation this release. I just want to say that they already call out, send me email.
Well, we can remove it from the milestone if we want to.
Yeah, I think it definitely should be removed from the milestone.
Yeah. I can retarget to 1.28.3. Since they already asked.
Yeah, I know much of my afternoon is going to be spent reading the rest of the KEPs here. So hopefully we can.
Yeah, I think another one. I think the username space is probably like Dawn, unless someone is actively going to work on it. I don't know how they'll make it. Yeah.
Yes, I'm so sorry. I brought this back. We couldn't find the people in this release, but we definitely want to find the people as soon as possible. But for this release, everyone is overloaded.
Okay.
Yeah. So sorry about this. I should give up.
Yeah, no worries. I think maybe we can just target like a KEP during this time frame, and then the next one we can target implementation.
Yes. The same thing for container notifier, because I know Seth overloaded. I already call out and internally try to find another reviewer and partner with Seth to review this one. Yeah.
I'm really not sure why the release team called it tracked. Maybe because Tim Hawkin put an LGTM and an approve on it. But there's no PRR done here, so I'm not sure. And also, Tim is not a approver for SIG Node. So, I mean, we can go talk to the enhancements team and tell them that. But this isn't merged, so I'm not sure why that would be called tracked.
I think they just misunderstand. Tim only just because in the past we have like a back and forth, like even Derek and I involved several meetings with Tim. It's from the scope and the container notifier scope, because that could be huge, and then API, how we are represent. So I think the teams also have some compromise this time, and okay with the layer down scope, and also okay with the current API. Similar like the VPA, right? So we agree about the design scope, but there's the back and forth on the API. So that's kind of he only approved on the on the API level, so that's different.
Yeah, because I'm just looking at like this PRR column. I don't think it's accurate because I think I was very close to PRR approving on this one, but I did not yet approve it. I know that this one has not yet been approved for me, and so on and so forth. So someone's probably gonna have to go through and update this. But at least this is the list of what the enhancements team is tracking and the issue numbers and whatnot. Basically everything on here right now is currently at risk. So we probably need to prioritize what we think is actually going to make it into the release versus like what we think is just not ready.
Yeah, so at least for my part, I think I've gotten through a number of these KEPs this morning, and we'll get through the latter half this afternoon. And I hope to have any comments needed for those by end of day today, and hopefully that won't be too bad. And I think anyone else in the community that wants to do that, please let your comments be known. Thanks, Alana, for pointer to this. I think the next item on here was Vinay on your 2 KEPs, but not sure if you had additional information you want to share beyond what we already discussed now, which was we're working on getting in this afternoon?
Not much. The only item that I was concerned about is if we can identify a code reviewer for this KEP. I think my plan overall is, so we have this implementation that I did last year in June, July timeframe, and David Ashpole, even Jordan Liggett and Tim to a certain extent looked quite closely at the code before Tim figured we probably want to remove the resources allocated being in the API in the pod spec and move it to checkpointing in the kubelet. So my plan is to take that code, which has been pretty well reviewed, and move it, lift and shift surgically on most parts of it to the latest code base. So the minimal review would be required for the status updates and API, the pod spec update, and the container, the sync pod loop. The new thing would be your checkpointing in the kubelet. That will be new code, and I'm wondering if there is a reviewer available to look at that closely, so we ensure that this goes in with high quality.
Okay, I can ask Lento. I know Lento today have some conflict. Yeah, I will ask Lento to help on this one because he have all the experience in the past, and he keep asking me what he want to come back to the SIG node, where to start and help. So I think maybe this is
perfect place.
Behold, for because he also participated all those old discussings. So.
Yeah, I think he was there in parts of it. At least the CRI part, he looked at it and we made some changes to the KEP. So that's great. So if we can get him, I'm gonna plan on I'm gonna start working on the code. What remains is to look at the PRR section. I added that, moved things around a little bit to line up with the latest templates. So I believe Derek and you can look at it, and Elena has already looked at it, I think, first pass, and for the most part, correct me if I'm wrong, but you think it's close. So we need 3 of you to sign off, and then the KEP should be official.
Yeah, I just did the PRR review, so the PRR is very close. I didn't read the rest of the KEP.
Okay.
All right, awesome, Vinay. The only comment is I think I don't think the checkpoint stuff has evolved deeply since Lantau had looked at the area, but yeah, I'm happy to help out there as well. So
okay, yeah, I'm gonna look at the CPU manager example and then just pretty much follow that.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna reference. Is basically everything that was done in those areas has been pretty stable.
Great. Well,
so I think the next item on the agenda was a follow-up on the disk issue. I think is Jack here to want to talk about that?
Hey folks, so just real quick, I'll just paste a PR. This is a candidate fix to address, it's actually documented in code. So there are known races between setting up the container manager and getting nodes status. Sometimes the ephemeral storage allocatable data is not yet around. And so I've been spending a lot of time in the last couple of weeks figuring out a way to surgically improve this to minimize the race condition without refactoring everything, because a lot of it is pretty hairy there. But if anybody's opinionated about that, there's the PR. I don't think I'm going to spend too much time talking about it in detail because it's hard to summarize.
I think last week when we talked about this, I was like, probably C-Advisor was late in getting some information. Is that basically the TLDR?
That's exactly right. And it's actually known, it's like there are code comments that describe C-Advisor's sort of role in the various flows. So there's some serialization that happens. C-Advisor comes sort of next after the initial container manager instantiation, which means that we can't do a rootfs quite yet. In most cases, it seems the first node status request comes after C-Advisor has started, and the container, I'm already at a super low level. Anyway, the container manager gets that information, so the node status has the right allocatable storage data, but that doesn't always happen. Sometimes the node introspection is faster than that. And so the node data representation includes an allocatable storage of 0.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to think through like what's the actual impact of this race, because last release or so we had a correctness issue in the kubelet where, for example, it might have been able to list watch pods, but had not yet been able to list watch the node resource itself. And then as a consequence, there was an issue where the kubelet could launch a pod that may not have been actually feasible to schedule on that local node. And then we had done a number of fixes to try to get right. And the first fix resulted in kind of it was more correct, but then was slower, and then it impacted kubeadm startup times. And then we iterated together to try to get a faster fix that was also correct. What I'm wondering here is like, this seems like it will more greatly impact kubeadm startup times. And I'm wondering if there's a budget that this use case is being driven from that says, you know, how quickly we expect all these things to
Yeah, that's a great call. I think all that is actually open. So the PR right now has some retry functionality in with a timeout. So we can drive the timeout super low if we're concerned about that. But to answer your first question, really the canonical repro is the kubeadm configuration that includes local etcd. So you're delivering an etcd pod via etcd Kubernetes manifests. And since 120, that includes ephemeral storage requirements. And for most kubeadm joins, that's okay. There's actually a lot of ways of kind of like trying to simplify things. But for the second, when you join the second node in particular, it gets.
I don't know if it's just me, but I lost Jack's audio.
Yeah, looks like the problem is audio. Did I go mute?
I think maybe we hear you again.
Okay. Testing, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where it cut off, but did I explain the second etcd node quorum thing?
That's where your audio would cut off. But in general,
Okay.
like, if I can read on the issue, I was just mostly trying to be concerned on correctness fixes that then introduce latency.
Yeah.
Then resulted in a lot of work. And on this particular issue, I don't know if we have a better, faster path to get more time squeezed out. So anyway, I was just curious on that one. I'll read that.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great call. I think that should be totally under consideration. I mean, I plan to actually go after this, go to kubeadm and maybe advocate that we roll back the ephemeral storage requirement, but I feel like it's the best thing to do due diligence here because there is a race. And so if we can identify that race and make a decision on what we want to do about it, that's really the foundational thing. So I think the PR I have in place is totally open to even not retrying. We can just do a just in time. If we don't have allocatable storage, we can try once to see if C-Advisor has started. I mean, it's hard to explain this stuff in the abstract. You have to kind of know the code, but that would mitigate any potential like 20-second, 30-second warm up delays waiting for allocatable storage on like the nominal kubeadm case, even when ephemeral storage isn't a factor.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Well, I guess
someone has a comment, I think.
Yeah, can I have some comments? I'm Aldo from sig-scheduling. So I was looking at this issue because as I saw it in the scheduler log sometimes, and we also get ephemeral storage 0 for some time, but then that's fine because the scheduler will retry, right? So in that scenario, it wouldn't be an issue. You wouldn't get pods in the kubelet that require ephemeral storage. Now the problem is when the node restarts and it has already running pods. Then at that point you have a pod that should work in that node, and then after the restart it fails. And the issue is that we have remaining pods or failed pods that don't get a garbage collected. So that's pretty much the issue. that you just get those pods that need to be recreated by some other controller, right? So my suggestion or my question would be, is it possible to leave any pods or like pods that don't require ephemeral storage unaffected by the delays, and only if only if a pod requires ephemeral storage and we see 0 in the allocatable, then we kind of don't fail the pod yet, but retry it later.
Yeah, so for each of those paths, we have to work our way through on that. I mean, all things are code, so it's probably possible. On the static pod issue, like we had to delay a start of a static pod until we had known that we had in the past been able to list watch the node from the API server. So that there is some parts of the code we've added gating, but I think if you had a test case for the static pod scenario that was like consuming ephemeral storage and we showed it failing, that's a great way of us then getting it fixed, right? So that if that's impacting anyone right now, and even the KubeADM community, we can better enriching our test cases is a nice way of ensuring that we get it working, I guess, if it did regress. But the actual like where in that sync loop or in the pod admission check on the qubit side to handle the requeue it for later, I'd have to think through, with someone else together on the best place to put that.
Yeah, the problem, I'll add a brief commentary on that. The challenge there is, that was my first approach as well. But if you add retry tolerance there, you're not really actually guaranteed, depending on what kind of race condition scenario you're in, that it's ever going to succeed under the hood. So I felt like the most surgical change would be to, at the point where you're actually gathering data, to detect when ephemeral storage has not ever been gathered, which is the particular race at the start of the container manager, and block on C advisor for a small amount of time, trusting that in most cases it's going to come up quickly after and you're going to be able to get that data. If you just retry in the predicates flow, the race condition would still be present. So you could retry for 20 minutes, but you've still got 0.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know, Jack, given if you had I'll have to look at your PR. If you had an EDE in the EDE node that just simulated starting a static pod with ephemeral storage, that's probably, even if the KubeADM community doesn't leverage it, it probably at least gets us on a path to know that we're not going to have issues where static pods would be consuming it.
Yeah, that's literally what I've been running. HA control plane KubeADM built cluster. So
yeah, but I'm just saying restrict that even down to just a smaller EDE that starts a static.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, cool. All right, well, I'll look at the PR and go from there, Jack. Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Tim, I know we talked about the PSP release last week. Were there new discussion points you want to talk through? Or am I looking at my agenda? Oh, I'm looking at the wrong week's agenda. Oh, thank you. Are there any other topics people want to raise today? Otherwise, we'll all give back time to continue our KEP review processes.
I had a quick thing, which was I have gone through and I've updated the spreadsheet, and everything that I could find a PRR reviewer, I put into the spreadsheet. At least half of them don't even have someone assigned. This is mandatory for your KEP to merge. So some of them I've gone and commented and said, please assign one. But if, or the release team already has, please make sure that you do that. Because otherwise your KEP won't be able to merge without a PRR reviewer. And if nobody's assigned, no one will know to review it. So.
All right, well, thanks, Alana. That, I guess we will end today's meeting.
Yeah, I have a quick question if we have a moment. I'm trying to get a sense of where the syscuttles set up, what the current status of syscuttles is, and sort of marking new syscuttles as safe. My reading of the recent enhancement proposal is that it was largely just stabilizing or like documenting the existing allow and safe syscuttles mechanism. Is there anything sort of on the roadmap for adding new syscuttles, or where should I be asking about adding new sysctls that should be safe.
Yeah, so some history on that. The original set of sys controls that were identified as safe were probably enumerated about, I don't know, order of 3 to 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's possible that new things have become safe that were unsafe at that moment in time. So if you have a more updated set that we can demonstrate are safe, and we know the kernel versions at which they're safe to be exercised, maybe I think we would all invite the feedback, and we can think through the best way of expanding the safe list.
Okay, is that just a code change, or does that need a cap, or what's the work? I'm new to this, so what's the workflow?
Yeah, so I think before we even jump into a cap or a code change, just sharing what you sounds like you may have discovered in your mind in a simple Google Doc next week, or your convenience in this setting, a great place to do that.
Okay. So put something on the agenda for next week that has sort of a link to, here's a bunch of sysctls I found, and here's why I think they're safe.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah, maybe file an issue too in KK.
KK is Kubernetes/Kubernetes. Okay, I can do that.
The issue we'll have to work through is like the underlying kernel versions or stuff like that I will challenge our way of determining safety or not. Okay.
Yes, I will take that. Is there a kernel range I should be looking at? Is there a minimum supported kernel for Kubernetes?
It's hard because like RHEL does backports. So RHEL may say 4 point something, but it has newer stuff backported. So like just looking at the version is going to be tricky.
Okay. I will look from 4 something onwards, and then we can figure it out next week. I can come back with some text for next week.
You can also look at the kubeadmin. Kubeadmin have the system validation test and link against that test and see what we put there. If I remember a long time ago, we basically just 3.18 and above, but we should refresh that one. We totally okay to refresh that one too, because that's the couple years ago we have that for Kubernetes. Okay. What we put, yeah.
Where is this? Sorry.
Kubeadmin.
Yeah. So if you look in the Kube code base, there's, at least it used to be, there was a validation.
The system validator.
Okay. The link that was sent to the chat.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's like a kernel validator.go.
Yeah.
Might be one I want to check out.
Thank you.
All right. All the best, and look forward to hearing on that next time at your convenience, Jeffrey. Talk later. Yeah. Bye, everyone.
Bye, folks.